What is the key to success? What if the answer isn't talent, but a trait that anyone can develop? In the best-selling book Grit, psychologist Angela Duckworth argues that what truly sets people apart is not intelligence, family background, or opportunity, but long-term passion and unwavering perseverance. She calls this trait grit. In this video, I will walk you through the 5 most important core concepts from Grit, which will completely change the way you view success and effort. The reason this book is so widely acclaimed is not just because it's inspiring, but because its insights are built on solid research. Whether it's educators, athletes, or business leaders, people from all walks of life praise this book. Duckworth studied the training of freshmen at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, the preparation process of spelling bee champions, and the performance of salespeople in the workplace. These studies suggest that grit is a better predictor of future success than IQ test scores or past achievements. Duckworth presents an impressive idea in the book: effort counts twice. She believes that although talent helps people learn faster, what truly matters is consistent commitment and practice. In other words, effort isn't just a way to make up for lack of talent. It might even be more important than talent itself. It is this relentless dedication to long-term goals that creates excellence across all fields. Angela Duckworth was not a psychologist at the beginning. She was once a middle school math teacher. She later embarked on research because she was curious why some students were better at persevering than others. Her research drew widespread attention and even earned her the MacArthur Genius Grant. Her TED
It's
Talk,
very common
Grit,
among
The
highly
Power of
creative
Passion and
people,
Perseverance,
both artists
has been
and
viewed over
scientists,
25 million
and I'd
times
like to give it a
worldwide.
name.
This book is
Slow
the result
motion
of her systematic
multitasking.
organization of years of
Slow motion.
research. Now that we understand the importance of the book and know the background of its author, let us dive into the 5 core concepts from Grit and understand why grit may be one of the most important life skills you can develop. In this fast-paced age, we often hear that talent determines success, and that successful people are born with exceptional abilities. However, this belief is not entirely correct. In fact, what truly predicts success is not talent, but what we call grit. Grit is composed of 2 core components: passion and perseverance. Together, they form the power to pursue long-term goals continuously. Grit is not about short-term impulses or fleeting enthusiasm. It's long-term, sustained effort, the spirit of not giving up easily when faced with challenges. Everyone inevitably encounters difficulties and setbacks on the path to their goals. But this is precisely where grit comes into play. Only those who keep trying and constantly challenge themselves can ultimately reach their goals and achieve true success. Many studies show that grit is a more reliable predictor of success than IQ or talent. The author cites several cases, like students at West Point, contestants in spelling bees, and salespeople, that demonstrate how grit outperforms other indicators in predicting long-term performance. These studies show that even if you are not a natural genius, as long as you possess grit, you can still overcome obstacles and push beyond your limits. The research at West Point is especially representative. This school is known for its extremely challenging training. Many students give up after enduring grueling physical training and mental tests. However, those who persevere to the end are not necessarily the smartest or the strongest, but those who have grit. These students do not stand out because of exceptional talent, but because they maintain enthusiasm and consistent effort in the face of difficulties, eventually overcoming great challenges. Similar situations occur in spelling bees. These young spelling contestants undergo countless hours of training and face competitors from all over the world. Yet the ones who rise to the top are not just those with extraordinary memories, but those who maintain perseverance through repeated failures and keep working hard. Their success comes more from persistence and passion than raw talent. These cases prove that success is not a coincidence, nor does it come from short-term effort. In fact, short bursts of effort rarely yield lasting results. Success requires long-term dedication, and that is why grit is such an important trait. The author emphasizes that grit not only helps us overcome short-term challenges, but also enables us to keep moving forward on a long journey and ultimately achieve success. More importantly, grit can be cultivated. It is not something we are born with. This idea challenges our traditional understanding of talent. Many people believe that only those born smart can succeed, but that is not the case. Grit does not rely on talent. It depends on how we continuously invest time and effort. This also explains why seemingly ordinary people can, through prolonged effort, reach extraordinary heights. The author proposes a simple formula to help us understand the importance of grit. The formula is talent times effort equals skill, and skill times effort equals achievement. This means that even if someone does not possess outstanding natural talent, as long as they are willing to put in enough effort, they can turn their talent into skill and ultimately into achievement. The formula also emphasizes the importance of effort, as it appears twice in the process. This conveys a key message. Effort matters far more than talent. Many people attribute success to talent, thinking that genius is the key to success. However, the author points out that talent is not the determining factor. Success depends more on our sustained effort and continuous investment. This perspective not only gives us a new understanding of success, but also encourages us to truly value the importance of effort. Furthermore, this formula helps us understand that real success comes from ongoing progress and continuous effort, not from a one-time breakthrough. That's why some people who may not stand out in the beginning can later surpass others, because they keep working, accumulating experience, and eventually succeed. This makes the myth that talent determines everything far less convincing. In fact, more and more research shows that success is less the result of talent and more the result of sustained effort. Success comes from persistence in pursuing a goal and the courage to not give up in the face of difficulties. All of this demonstrates the importance of grit and deepens our understanding of what success really means. In summary, grit is more important than talent. It is not only the key to success, but also a skill that can be cultivated. Whether it's students at West Point, spelling bee contestants, or professionals in the workplace, what they all have in common is grit. This lasting passion and perseverance can help us break through the limits of our natural abilities, achieve our goals, and ultimately realize long-term success. Grit teaches us that success does not rely on short-term luck, but on long-term effort and relentless pursuit. After understanding the power of grit, we then dive in. The author introduces a simple yet profound formula to illustrate the role of effort in achievement. Talent times effort equals skill, and skill times effort equals achievement. The essence of this formula lies in the fact that effort appears twice in the overall success equation, meaning its impact is doubled. This challenges the long-standing societal belief in talent. Many people believe that if someone is talented, they will naturally excel. But in reality, talent might help you move faster or start at a higher point. Yet what truly determines whether you reach the finish line is the effort and accumulation you invest every single day. The author believes that effort is not only key to developing skills, but also the only path to transforming those skills into real achievements. For example, some people are born with good pitch and may quickly learn to play a melody. But without steady practice and repeated honing of technique, they will not become outstanding musicians. Similarly, some writers may have strong natural language abilities, but those who can actually finish a best-selling book are often the ones who sit down to write every day and continuously revise their drafts. The author argues that these examples show that having potential is not enough. How you use that potential is what truly determines how far you'll go. In the field of sports, this idea is also very evident. An athlete may be naturally coordinated and quick to react, but without hard training, their technique will never mature. Those who perform consistently are often the ones who have trained for years and remain undeterred even after losing competitions. Effort is not just about accumulating practice hours, it's also about building mental resilience. Not only in technical work, but even in creative industries, the importance of effort is confirmed. Many people think creativity depends on inspiration, but in reality, those who keep creating even when they lack inspiration are the ones most likely to seize those rare moments of brilliance. The author believes these people are not constantly inspired. They simply create the conditions through effort to allow inspiration to arise. Likewise, in the workplace, similar patterns emerge. Some people start strong and learn fast, appearing impressive at first. But over time, those who continue to learn steadily and are willing to adjust their methods often become the ones who get promoted and shine long-term. Because work doesn't just test skills, it also tests whether a person can stay committed under pressure and learn from mistakes. The author says, Our potential is one thing, but how we use it is another. This means that potential alone does not automatically lead to results. Only through effort can it be truly realized. This view offers a new perspective. Instead of passively waiting for some natural talent to appear, we should actively build our abilities and accomplishments through effort. This brings a profound insight. Even if we start from different points, with enough effort, everyone has the chance to reach their own peak. Effort acts like an amplifier. No matter how much potential you have, as long as you're willing to invest in it, effort can maximize it. On the other hand, if you only rely on talent without working hard, that potential will gradually fade over time. It's worth noting that the kind of effort being discussed here is not blind hard work, but strategic, goal-driven investment. The author points out that high achievers often demonstrate two characteristics in their efforts: consistency and purpose. They don't just practice every day, they constantly reflect on how to improve. They proactively seek feedback, embrace challenges, and find opportunities for growth even in failure. Another crucial point is that sustained effort shapes our sense of identity. When you spend time cultivating your craft in a particular field, you begin to see yourself as part of that world. This self-identification strengthens your motivation and deepens your engagement. Over time, this forms a positive feedback loop, one that drives long-term progress rather than relying on short bursts of energy to achieve goals. This mindset is especially important in families and educational environments. If children grow up hearing you're smart rather than you worked hard, they may build their self-worth on talent alone, and when faced with failure, they're more likely to give up. But if they learn to attribute success to effort from a young age, they become more open to challenge and more resilient when things go wrong. This is why in certain schools, teachers intentionally encourage students to tackle difficult problems instead of sticking to the ones they already know how to solve. It builds a gritty, growth-oriented attitude. In short, the idea that effort counts twice helps us realize that effort is not just a tool to make up for our shortcomings, but a core multiplier in the success equation. Rather than envying someone else's talent, we should take responsibility for our own effort. As long as we're willing to show up and invest, we will eventually bear fruit in some field, and that very process is its own kind of achievement. Once we understand how effort plays this double-weighted role in success, the author takes us further into what grit truly consists of. Grit, as it turns out, isn't a single trait. It's a cluster of psychological assets that reinforce one another. The author breaks it down into 4 key components: interest, deliberate practice, purpose, and hope. Together, these elements form the mental framework that enables a person to persist and grow over the long term. Let's start with interest. The author believes that true grit begins with passion. But this passion isn't a lightning strike from the sky. It's something that gradually develops over time. Interest doesn't have to be crystal clear at the start, nor does it need to be perfect. What matters is the willingness to explore, try new things, and slowly build a connection through repeated engagement. Many people think finding your passion is a life mission, but the author argues that passion is something you grow, not something you just stumble upon. Next comes practice. But not just any practice. The author specifically emphasizes deliberate practice. That means practice aimed at correcting weaknesses, always seeking feedback, and pushing limits. Across his research, high achievers, from musicians to athletes to scholars, shared this mindset. They do similar things every day, but their attitude makes all the difference. They search for breakthroughs in repetition and develop their edge through small, focused improvements. The third pillar is purpose, the sense that what you're doing connects to something bigger than yourself. When a person believes their actions contribute to others, society, or the world, their motivation becomes more enduring. For example, the author mentions teachers who work in under-resourced schools and never give up, not because of the paycheck, but because they believe they're shaping the next generation. The same goes for healthcare workers in high-pressure environments. They stay because they feel their work saves lives. This belief is what gives their grit stability and meaning. Finally, we come to hope. This isn't just blind optimism. It's the ability to keep moving forward in the face of adversity. The author stresses that gritty people are not immune to setbacks. They simply choose to persist anyway. They believe things can improve, and more importantly, they believe their efforts can make a difference. This kind of hope is not innate. It's built through experience and mental conditioning. Many successful people have faced serious low points, but what helped them rise again was this inner strength that refused to quit. These 4 traits don't operate in isolation. They reinforce each other. For example, someone with a strong sense of purpose is more motivated to engage in deliberate practice. As they see improvement, their interest is sustained. When hardship arises, their sense of hope keeps them going. This dynamic interaction is what the author calls the mechanism of grit. Beyond theory, the author also shares personal experiences and stories from interviews. He talks about switching from Wall Street to teaching, and later to psychology, a journey full of uncertainty and challenge. He also discusses students who were average at first but later excelled, because they embodied the psychological traits mentioned above. These real-life cases show that grit is not an abstract concept. It's a capability that manifests in daily life. This naturally leads to a concept often discussed alongside grit: Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule, which claims that becoming an expert in any field takes 10,000 hours of practice. But the author argues that practice alone isn't enough. What really matters is who is willing to do those 10,000 hours. Not everyone has the patience, perseverance, or drive to put in that kind of work. The people who do, the ones who can endure the long, slow grind, are those with interest, purpose, strategy, hope, and most of all, grit. In other words, grit doesn't just explain how long someone practices. It explains who stays long enough to succeed. He once said that grit is more malleable than you think. This statement means that grit isn't innate. It can be gradually developed through training and life experiences. This gives hope to many people. Even if you're not yet gritty, there are ways to become stronger. Starting from cultivating interest, learning how to practice effectively, discovering purpose in your work, and building resilience through hardship, these are all viable paths. Overall, these 4 psychological assets form a solid mental foundation. Grit is not a trait reserved for certain personalities. It's an internal capability that anyone can develop over time through conscious effort. This transforms grit from an abstract and vague concept into a tangible, teachable, and actionable model. Once we understand the structure, we can begin to build persistence in a more targeted way, not merely relying on willpower alone, but supported by an entire psychological framework that enables long-term effort. After discussing the psychological architecture of grit, the next important question is, can grit be cultivated? The author believes the answer is yes. Grit is not a predetermined trait. It's a psychological habit that can be gradually developed through internal transformation and external practice. In other words, we don't have to start off gritty, we can choose to become that kind of person. One key concept here is the idea of a growth mindset. This idea, proposed by psychologist Carol Dweck, suggests that if people believe their abilities can grow through effort and experience, they're more likely to persevere through challenges. Conversely, those who believe their abilities are fixed tend to give up more easily when they encounter difficulty. The author supports this growth mindset, seeing it as the foundation for developing grit. When we come to understand that mistakes and setbacks are not failures, but learning opportunities, we're much more likely to keep going. To make this idea more concrete, the author introduces a simple yet practical rule of action called the hard thing rule. The essence of this rule is that everyone must commit to doing something personally challenging and stick with it for a set period, no quitting allowed. Whether it's practicing an instrument, writing, training, or preparing for an exam, the key is that this challenge is self-chosen and sustained over time. While simple in appearance, this rule cultivates focus and a sense of responsibility in the face of difficulty. In addition to building the right mindset, the author suggests a few specific strategies to strengthen grit step by step. The first is tracking progress. This isn't just about writing a journal, but making short daily or weekly notes that remind us of the path we've walked and give tangible form to our effort. When people can see their own growth, no matter how small, they're more motivated to continue. Another strategy is reflecting on purpose. Unlike the previously mentioned sense of purpose, this is more like a daily self-dialogue. Spending a moment each day to ask, why am I doing this? What value does it hold for me or others? This type of reflection reinforces intrinsic motivation and gives us reasons to keep going even when we're tired or doubtful. The last strategy is to combine short-term goals with a long-term vision. Many people set lofty ultimate goals, like becoming an expert in their field or completing a major project. But the author reminds us that without breaking these long-term goals into smaller steps, it's hard to maintain momentum. Therefore, he suggests transforming big ambitions into a series of small, actionable tasks. Each completed task provides a sense of achievement while keeping us moving in the right direction. This micro-goal plus macro-vision approach helps us sustain progress in everyday life. These strategies are effective because they make grit a daily practice rather than a vague personality trait. In other words, we don't just wait to become stronger, we actively build grit through specific actions. This inside-out cultivation approach is more stable and grounded than relying on sheer willpower. The author emphasizes that no one is born with infinite grit. Those who appear especially persistent in certain fields have, in fact, repeatedly practiced these mental techniques in real life. Every time they refuse to quit, revise a strategy, or reconnect with their motivation, they're laying the groundwork for grit. Over time, these actions accumulate into a habit, and that habit becomes a reliable psychological asset. This perspective is not only inspiring but also deeply practical. It tells us that regardless of whether we've shown grit in the past, today can be the starting point for building it. From now on, every time we choose to persist, deliberately practice, or reaffirm our goals, we're moving closer to becoming someone who can commit long-term and keep growing. Grit is no longer an elusive trait. It's a lifestyle we can practice in our daily routines. In addition to inner drive and self-training, the environment also plays a crucial role in developing grit. The author believes that grit can be strengthened and even shaped by external surroundings. This means we don't have to rely solely on ourselves. We can also draw strength from the people and culture around us to build lasting perseverance and commitment to goals. The family is the first critical environment influencing the development of grit. Supportive parents don't have to be strict overseers. Instead, they provide stable encouragement and appropriate challenges. The author observed that children who display grit early on often come from homes with clear expectations and emotional support. These parents aren't overly permissive or controlling. They set goals with their children, encourage them to keep trying, and help them find a sense of achievement in the process. When children know they're not struggling alone, they're more likely to persist through difficulties. Schools are another powerful environment. A good school does more than impart knowledge. It cultivates a culture of perseverance and effort. The author has studied cases where some students were able to maintain stable, long-term performance and even surpass their own limits, and found that the atmosphere in the school played a crucial role. These schools do not emphasize exam rankings. Instead, they encourage effort throughout the process. They reward students for progress, not just for results. Such a culture motivates students to spend more time practicing and adjusting their strategies, thereby cultivating genuine grit. Mentors and role models are also part of the external environment. Whether at school, in the workplace, or in society, a mentor with a gritty spirit often inspires others to realize their potential. The author says that when we have worthy people around us, they don't just help with skills, they provide guidance and mindset. These people share how they face failure, handle frustration and pressure, and offer encouragement and direction when others feel like giving up. This kind of support not only helps people resist quitting easily but also makes grit a learnable value through example. The influence of culture is even more profound, especially in some high-demand environments. For example, the United States Military Academy at West Point is a typical case. The author researched whether new cadets could endure the toughest beast week, and found that the key predictor of success wasn't physical strength or intelligence, but the grit score. In such a culture emphasizing discipline and collective responsibility, grit is not an individual trait but a group value. When everyone around you is gritting their teeth and persevering, you are also more likely not to give up easily. Similar phenomena can be seen in the workplace. Some high-performing companies and teams have a clear culture of grit. They value not only creativity and inspiration but also long-term commitment and continuous improvement. The author mentions that these organizations establish systems that encourage ongoing progress, such as regular feedback systems, post-failure reviews, and incentives for employees to set personal challenges. These external designs make grit less about individual willpower and more about being driven by the whole system. Beyond education and work, parenting styles are also important settings for building a culture of grit. The author shares examples from families where some parents practice challenges, tasks, and rules together with their children and use daily conversations to guide kids to set goals and reflect on their efforts. These dialogues are not authoritarian lectures but equal discussions, making children feel they have agency and gradually internalize a positive attitude toward effort. Overall, the environment acts like a greenhouse, allowing grit as a psychological trait to grow slowly. When the culture we live in encourages sustained effort, when the people around us value the process over results, and when systems make challenges manageable rather than overwhelming, we naturally become more willing to invest long-term effort. This also explains why certain communities more easily produce high achievers. It's not only individual persistence but also a collective value choice. The author believes that grit is not only built through internal training but can be continuously reinforced by external forces. Supportive families, encouraging schools, mentors with inspiring power, and well-designed work environments all quietly pave the way for us. When personal and environmental factors work together, grit can truly become a daily habit. Reviewing the core message of the whole book, the most important point is that when measuring key factors of success, grit often outweighs talent. We often mistakenly believe that only geniuses or lucky people can achieve extraordinary accomplishments. In reality, those who consistently invest time and effort are more likely to go far. The real key is whether one is willing to persist over the long term and choose not to give up when facing difficulties. The passion and perseverance emphasized in the book are neither innate nor exclusive to a few. These qualities can be cultivated gradually through practice, reflection, and growth. Whether it's by setting long-term goals, developing habits of practice, or finding deeper meaning in work and life, everyone has the opportunity to build their own path of grit. This also means grit is not a fixed personality trait but a skill that can be practiced and accumulated. For the audience, perhaps you already have a dream in your heart or are still exploring your direction. The author believes that a long-term goal combined with a mindset that refuses to give up is the beginning of any achievement. Starting today, try choosing one difficult but meaningful thing, not allowing yourself to quit easily, and record every bit of progress and reflection. Throughout this process, you will gradually discover that grit is not about how fast you start but how far, how long, and how steadily you're willing to go. As the book concludes, passion is common, but endurance is rare. What truly enables people to achieve long-term success is not a fleeting burst of enthusiasm but the sustained power of calm persistence and continuous action. This endurance and focus are the true keys to realizing real dreams.